What happens when Batman's greatest failure claws its way back from the grave? Before he was the gun-wielding Red Hood, he was Jason Todd, the Robin that the Joker brutally murdered. But death wasn't the end for him. Brought back by a reality-shattering event and forged anew in a mystical, ancient power, Jason returned to Gotham with a lethal new purpose: to do the one thing Batman never would: kill the Joker. This is the story of how a fallen hero wore his killer-esque mask to carve out a legend of his own. Every legend has a beginning, and Jason Todd started on the streets of Gotham. After the first Robin, Dick Grayson, stepped out of Batman's shadow to become Nightwing. The Dark Knight needed a new partner, found one in a young angry kid trying to steal the tires right off the Batmobile. That was Jason Todd. Originally, his backstory was almost a carbon copy of Dick Grayson's. His parents were circus acrobats killed by the villain Killer Croc. But after DC Comics rebooted its universe, Jason was reimagined as a hardened street orphan surviving through petty crime. This new origin gave Jason a darker, sharper edge. He wasn't the cheerful acrobat Dick Grayson had been. He was a fighter, a survivor, and he had a temper that often clashed with Batman's measured approach, and carried a rage that Batman hoped to channel for good. As the new Robin, Jason was effective, but his methods were often more brutal than his predecessors. He was a Robin who reflected the grim realities of the city that made him. This rebellious streak would ultimately lead to his doom. In the infamous 1988 storyline, A Death in the Family, Jason defies Batman's orders to track down the biological mother who abandoned him. His search leads him right into a trap laid by the Joker. What followed is one of the most iconic and savage moments in comics history. With a sickening grin, the Joker beat the young Robin mercilessly with a crowbar before leaving him and his mother to die in a warehouse rigged to explode. Batman arrived just seconds too late as the building erupted in a fireball. The image of him pulling Jason's lifeless body from the rubble would haunt him forever. The death of Jason Todd was more than the loss of a sidekick. It was Batman's greatest failure. He had brought a child into his war on crime, and it cost the boy his life. Bruce Wayne buried his son, believing his story had reached its tragic end. But in a world of comic book logic, death is rarely a permanent condition. Years passed, with Batman forever shadowed by guilt, but Jason's story wasn't over. His resurrection began with a cosmic event nobody could have predicted. In a pocket dimension, a powerful being known as Superboy Prime, frustrated with how dark the DC universe had become, literally punched the walls of reality. This punch sent ripples through time and space, causing a single, bizarre change in a Gotham cemetery. Jason Todd's body was restored, and he awoke in his own coffin. He clawed his way out, only to collapse, his mind completely shattered by the trauma of death and rebirth. Jason wandered Gotham as a practically feral, nameless ghost, until he was found by one of Batman's greatest adversaries and love interests, Talia al Ghul. Driven by her complex love for Batman, Talia took Jason's broken form and submerged him in the mystical green waters of the Lazarus Pit, ancient chemical font with the power to heal any wound and restore the mind. Jason Todd returned to full consciousness with a scream. The pit healed him, but it came with a price. It amplified all the rage and grief he'd been suppressing, twisting it into an all-consuming fire. Seeing an opportunity, Talia took Jason under the wing of the League of Assassins. He was subjected to years of brutal training across the globe, mastering skills Batman never taught him. He learned from the world's deadliest killers, becoming an expert in firearms, explosives, poisons, and lethal martial arts. He wasn't being trained as a hero. He was being forged into a living weapon. As his mind sharpened, his purpose came into focus, especially when he learned a soul-crushing truth. The Joker was still alive. Still laughing, still killing. In Jason's mind, this was the ultimate betrayal. Batman, his mentor and father figure, had failed to avenge him. This realization solidified his new mission. He would return to Gotham, not as Robin, but as a force of absolute justice. He just needed a new identity, a symbol that would strike fear into both criminals and the hero who had failed him. Before he was the clown prince of crime, the Joker was a small-time crook who wore a very specific disguise, a crimson helmet. He went by the alias Red Hood. In a brilliant act of psychological warfare, Jason Todd adopted his killer's original identity. He became the new Red Hood, twisting the Joker's legacy into his own weapon of vengeance. He made his explosive debut in Gotham in 2005 during the Under the Hood storyline. His return wasn't subtle. The Red Hood announced his arrival by calling a meeting of the city's top drug lords and giving them a simple ultimatum. They now worked for him. He'd take a 40% cut of their profits and offer them protection even from Batman. But he had one unbreakable rule: no selling to children. Anyone who broke that rule would be met with lethal force. To prove he was serious, he presented them with the decapitated heads of their former lieutenants. Jason wasn't trying to stop crime. He was trying to control it, running it more efficiently and ruthlessly than the criminals themselves. This lethal new player immediately came into conflict with Batman, who was horrified to see a vigilante using deadly force in his city. Their first clashes were electric, a dark ballet between two fighters who knew each other's moves intimately. It was during one of these fights that the Red Hood removed his helmet, revealing the face of the boy Bruce Wayne had buried years ago. The reveal shattered Batman, but the real confrontation was about why Jason had returned. He couldn't understand why Batman had allowed the Joker to live. In a tragic twist of irony, Jason was completely unaware of a bizarre fact. In the aftermath of his death, a grief-stricken Batman did pursue the Joker, only to find that the clown had been appointed as the Iranian ambassador to the UN, granting him diplomatic immunity. Batman's hands were tied by international law until the Joker tried to gas the entire UN assembly, which finally revoked his status. Jason never knew. His entire crusade was built on the belief that Batman didn't care enough to kill his murderer. This misunderstanding led to a heart-wrenching standoff. Jason captured the Joker and gave Batman an impossible choice: kill the Joker now, or Jason would. "If you won't kill this psychotic piece of trash," he screamed, "I will," was the ultimate test of Batman's one rule, forced on him by the son he had already failed to save. This philosophical war between Batman and Red Hood is one of the most compelling conflicts in comics, and it raises a question fans have debated for decades. Is Jason's lethal brand of justice necessary? Or does Batman's moral code, no matter how painful, represent the only true path for a hero? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more stories about the complicated history of your favorite heroes and villains, make sure to subscribe. The standoff between Batman, Red Hood, and the Joker ended with no clear victor, but it forever cemented Jason Todd's place in the DC universe. He was no longer just Batman's greatest failure, but a powerful, independent anti-hero operating in Gotham's gray areas. Over time, the raw fire of his vengeance has cooled, and he's even made a tense peace with the Bat family. But the fundamental disagreement over using lethal force remains a chasm between him and Bruce Wayne. Jason Todd's journey is a dark mirror of Batman's. He is a ghost who came back from the grave to wage a different, bloodier war on crime. His mask isn't just a symbol of his rage. It's a constant reminder of the day a hero died and an ancient power gave birth to a legend. He is the Red Hood, the prodigal son, who fights for Gotham's soul with blood on his hands, ever walking the line between savior and sinner.